What is going on, everybody? A wild 2022 NFL season is officially behind us. So what a better way to celebrate the end of a rather unpredictable season by trying to predict the upcoming NFL playoffs. That's what we're going to do in this video, going game by game. We got score predictions, matchup breakdowns, you name it. We're going to get right into it. But before we do get started, if you could do me a huge favor, just hit that like button real quick. Takes just a second. Going to be a lot of people cranking out playoff predictions videos, so that like count tells YouTube to push this video up the algorithm. Really helps me out. Takes just a second. Let's try and get 3,000 likes on this video. Would just go a long way to helping me out. So let's make that a like goal here, and let's get into it. For this upcoming weekend, we are going to go in order of when these games are happening. So that means we are going to be starting with, honestly, probably the least interesting matchup of the weekend, in my opinion. You know, Seahawks fans, it's nothing against you, and it's nothing against any of these teams if I'm picking against you, but I do think this is where Seattle's luck kind of runs out. And not luck. They had an amazing season. They kind of shocked the world. No one thought they'd be a playoff team, and they come in, kind of sneak in the back door here with a win over the Rams and a Packers loss. We've seen this matchup a few weeks ago with the Niners against the Seahawks, obviously a familiar opponent there in division, but I just don't like this matchup for Seattle. I really don't. I think Seattle's defense is very soft. I don't like their front seven. I don't like their ability to get after Brock Purdy to make him uncomfortable in his first playoff start. And I don't like their ability to run and chase against all these playmakers. In fact, I think Seattle's defense is at its worst in its perimeter run defense. We've seen that matchup here in this very game. The Carolina Panthers really attacked the outside. Even the Rams last week had some success running the ball to the outside. So I do expect this to be a big Christian McCaffrey week. George Kittle getting lost in the middle of this defense. It's just a tough matchup for that reason. And also, this Niners defense, they freaking smell blood, dude. They are sharks in the water. And Geno's had an awesome season, but we saw Nick Bosa get the better of rookie left tackle Charles Cross. They do have Eric Armstead back into the mix here for this Niners defense. Such an underrated piece. I just do not like this matchup. I think the Niners win this one fairly convincingly, 28-17. I think we get a little bit of Geno magic, but I just don't think it's going to be enough. We're going to go Niners to win this one. Now, before we dive any further here, I've got to tell you guys about a way to elevate your upcoming NFL playoff viewing experience through Underdog Fantasy's Playoff Gauntlet Challenge. I've loved playing on Underdog's daily pick'em contests, and surely I'm going to be making lineups there as well, but this Gauntlet Challenge is going to be a freaking blast, man. So this is a fantasy football draft where you are drafting against 5 other users and competing against way more than that for massive payouts. But here's the catch. You got to draft players that are going to be on teams that last deep into the playoffs as we get closer to the big game. So you can follow along with my picks in this video, pick players from teams that I think are going to go further. Or if you think I'm an idiot and you hate my picks, you can go and bet against that by drafting players on the teams that I think are going to lose. And the cherry on top is keep an eye out on Twitter, because I might be able to draft against you guys there on Underdog. So again, keep an eye out for that. But this is going to be awesome, man. I can't wait to start drafting teams. I went 0 for 4 in my own fantasy playoffs this season, so my fantasy season came to an early conclusion, but this is going to be a way to get right back in to fantasy football, which we all love. So right now, you can sign up at Underdog Fantasy. These contests cost $25 per entry, but if you sign up now using promo code TFG, they will match up to $100 on your first deposit. That's up to 4 extra entries into this gauntlet tournament if you'd like. That is promo code TFG at Underdog Fantasy, and good luck. All right, then for the Saturday night matchup, this one's really tough to predict. I think the Chargers at the Jags is the game we're talking about here. The Chargers are the safer pick. They're a more established team. Herbert in year 3 has been a more consistently dominant quarterback in his time in the NFL. And I think the Chargers just a more experienced team, even though this is the first playoff appearance for, these versions of these teams with these exciting young quarterbacks, Herbert versus Trevor Lawrence. And that's obviously what the narrative is going to be on this game, is who comes out the victor between these two quarterbacks. Now, I'm as excited for that as the next one. And I definitely think against a couple of pretty soft defenses, we see some freaking punches getting thrown left and right between these quarterbacks in a bit of a heavyweight battle. I do think this is going to be a higher scoring game, but I do side with the Chargers' overall consistency here. I do think Brandon Staley has made some very nice adjustments to this defense. By the way, if you haven't seen my Vic Fangio style defense breakdown, it's something you might want to keep in the back of your mind as you look at what Brandon Staley is doing schematically, defensively, if you are a football nerd. But I do think Brandon Staley has done a very good job with that defense. And I do think with Bosa getting back into the mix here, they can do some stuff to make Trevor Lawrence look uncomfortable, who, let's face it, did not play great last week against the Tennessee Titans. Is this going to be a little bit too much for Trevor Lawrence? I don't know. I'm really excited for this game. The Jags are definitely a sleeping giant. They have shown any given week that they can come out, be an extremely explosive offense against many different defenses. And I also think defensively, they have some guys that can make some plays. So I am not locking this game in. I have to make a pick, but I really could see this one going either way. I am going to side with the Chargers in this one, but Saturday night, this is going to be one of the better games of the weekend. So we're going to go Chargers 27-24. Looking forward to this one. Then we're going to have the Miami Dolphins visiting the Buffalo Bills. A lot of divisional rematches here this weekend. This is going to be one of them. Tough game to really break down at this point in time, because in that game against the Jets, we saw the Dolphins offense not just struggle, but Tyreek Hill get banged up with an ankle injury. I think Jalen Waddle got a little banged up there. And then the quarterback situation is just a massive, hands out, what the hell is going on here? Does Tua rush back from the concussion stuff? Is that even on the table right now? Does Teddy Bridgewater get back into the mix? Or do you get Skylar Thompson? That's just really tough, right? I do feel like this is where the Dolphins season comes to a close. The Bills are picking momentum back up. I mean, just the energy in this stadium that we saw against the Patriots last week after the Damar Hamlin situation, it just has good vibes right now. And you know how talented this Bills team is. And if I'm worried about the Bills in any regard, it would be their defense. But man, in this matchup, with this offense, I just don't see the Dolphins coming out with a whole lot of explosiveness. I know they're number one in the NFL in explosive plays, but if it's Skylar Thompson, a potentially hindered Tyreek Hill, and I don't know about Waddle, but it just feels like the Dolphins are kind of running out of steam, and it's just not their year right now. Whereas the Bills, maybe it kind of is their year. I don't know. We're going to go with the Bills in this one, 35-17. This is early in the day on Sunday. The NFL certainly expecting a bit of a blowout in this one, and I can't really disagree. Okay, the next game is going to be the Minnesota Vikings hosting the New York Giants. Wow, this is fascinating. Talk about a team that is kind of backing into the playoffs here. The Minnesota Vikings have not had a good couple months of football. They've been injured. They've lost multiple players on that offensive line. None bigger than Brian O'Neill, one of the best right tackles in the NFL, going to be out of the lineup here. And they just haven't been an impressive football team. This is a rematch of Week 17, which was a matchup in Minnesota that happened before these big injuries on the offensive line for the Vikings. Now, that's big. That is absolutely massive. This was already a close game several weeks ago, but the Giants' biggest strength is that pass rush. Kayvon Thibodeau, Azeez Ojulari, those interior guys. I mean, Dexter Lawrence looks like he's going to be going up against a third-string center. I don't like that for the Vikings. I think that's going to put way too much pressure on Kirk Cousins. Literal, physical pass rush pressure. And Kirk is not a mobile guy. very similar to what we saw against the Green Bay Packers last week. He's going to put the ball in harm's way, I believe, in those high-pressure situations. And we know this Giants team really capitalizes on those mistakes. So this was already a close game a couple weeks ago, but I think the injuries are leaning in the Giants' favor. I also like the way the Giants' offensive scheme matches up against the way the Vikings like to play defense. The Vikings are soft. They want to live in nickel defense, and the Giants want to get big. They want to run the ball. They want to hit underneath stuff, and they're more than comfortable making 8, 9, 10 play drives and avoiding mistakes. So I really like this matchup for the New York Giants. And the Vikings have really shown, I don't want to say they've shown their whole ass in the last couple of months, but they've definitely shown that they are a fraudulent 12-5 or 13-4, 12-5, whatever the record is. They've got like a massively negative point differential on the season, and there's a reason for that. So I'm gonna actually take the Giants here, which is crazy considering I was viewed by many as a Giants hater about 2 months ago, but I've just been blown away with the adaptability of this team, and they've grown a lot. Like, they've found guys like Isaiah Hodgins and Saquon's come back, and the offensive line's been playing better. Daniel Jones is playing really good football, so I think just a much more reliable football team that is going to be the team that avoids mistakes. And just as the Giants have done all year long, they're going to find a way to squeeze this one out in the end. And I know the Vikings fans are going to say they're 11-0 and one-score games and all that stuff. I think that luck's going to run out here against another team that is much, I'm not going to say they're better in those situations, but they thrive on those types of situations. So we're going upset here. Giants 23-21. And you just know this one's going to come down to the last 3 minutes and basically be a coin toss. I'm going to side with the Giants here, going on the road and getting a stunning playoff win, basically. Then we have the Cincinnati Bengals hosting the Baltimore Ravens, a rematch of what we just watched in Week 18. And another game where we don't fully know the health of the Ravens quarterback here. I would assume that Lamar Jackson is going to try and go. They are a 6-point underdog at this point in time, which tells me that he's playing, because without him, they were like 10-point underdogs. So Vegas typically knows what they're talking about with that kind of stuff, which, by the way, I'm going to be in the desert this weekend with my family betting on some of these games. So if you see me, come say hello. But this is not a great matchup for the Baltimore Ravens because the Bengals' run defense is legitimately one of the best in the league. If the Ravens want to try and power this thing up, well, you've got DJ Reader and BJ Hill and these linebackers, and just the tenacity of this Bengals defense is absolutely legit. It's a big reason they went on that playoff run last year. So I think in Cincinnati, this team's going to be playing with a ton of energy, and I don't think the Ravens have success on the ground. And with a potentially banged up Lamar Jackson, even with a fully healthy Lamar Jackson, I don't think the Ravens have the scheme. I don't think they have the play call, the playmakers offensively to match what the Bengals are going to be able to do with Joe Burrow and their run game and all the adjustments that the Bengals have shown that they're capable of making. So I just think the Bengals are a better team. The Ravens, similar to some of these other teams, have just dealt with a ton of injuries, and I just don't think it's their year. The Bengals, I just love what they're doing right now. So we're going to go Bengals 23-16. I do think this is going to be a scrappy game, familiar opponents and all that. But I do think the Bengals, kind of walk out of this one pretty clean in the end. And that takes us to the final game of the first round here. The Tampa Bay Bucks hosting the Dallas Cowboys. Talk about showing their whole ass. The Cowboys looked terrible last week against the Washington Commanders. Now having to go on the road against Tom Brady. And for a team that won, 12 games this year for Dallas? That's not ideal, right? Nobody wants to go and play Tom Brady in his stadium, regardless of what has happened with his team this year. This is not going to be an easy game for the Dallas Cowboys, even if they are on paper the better team. This, to me, is all about Dak Prescott. I've said this on my podcast all year, really for the second half of the year. By the way, I do have a podcast. That link is in the description below. If you enjoy my analysis, you want to check it out, or just search Fully Inflated Football Podcast, wherever you get your audio shows. But this is a huge year for Dak Prescott. He's got the team around him. He gets paid the $40 million to be a Super Bowl winning quarterback. And that means when you have a good team with good coaching, with playmakers and a great defense, which this defense is more than capable of providing, you got to get the job done. And if Dak comes out and plays even remotely close to like he played last week against Washington, or like he's played in the playoff game last year, or in big games in years past, I think the Cowboys are going to lose. If Dak comes out and looks like good Dak Prescott, then the Cowboys should win this game. I don't do this all the time. It's a team sport and all that. But in this situation, with how inconsistent Dak has been this year, he's got to come out prepared and avoid mistakes. He leads the NFL in interceptions. Granted, many of them are bad luck, but he's way towards the top in turnover-worthy plays. You see the back-to-back attempts to try and throw a pick six against Washington. He's made a lot of mistakes this year, and he's got to avoid those in Tampa against a feisty, experienced, pissed-off defense, and I don't know if he's going to be able to do that. So for that reason, I'm going to take the Bucs, whose defense has played better lately. I think the Bucs offense has really found their stride. I will say there's another weakness with Dallas here, and that is the secondary. Right now, they have been giving up a lot of big plays, and you look at the way the Bucs have moved the ball lately. It's been these shot plays down the sideline to Mike Evans, and you can just picture him getting one or two against whoever's out there, whether it's Trayvon Diggs or whoever, beating him on a double move or two. I do think Tom Brady's going to get the ball out and neutralize that pass rush. So I got a pretty strong feeling about this one. If you're a bettor out there, this is going to be probably my favorite bet, is to go Bucs money line. I think the Cowboys season is going to fall short here this weekend in Tampa Bay, and Tom Brady's going to advance. So that's going to take us to the divisional round. Some exciting matchups, to say the least, here. Let's start in the NFC. We've got the Eagles hosting the New York Giants, and this is a huge mismatch on paper, right? You have probably the best roster in the NFL if these guys can get back healthy. You got Lane Johnson, Jalen Hurts, Avonte Maddox, Josh Sweat, a bunch of guys kind of teetering on the line of, are they going to play, are they not going to play? So getting that bye was really big for the Philadelphia Eagles this week. And then you look at the Giants, who I will say their roster is far from bad at this point. Like, they have legit dudes, top guys at their position. Andrew Thomas, you got Dexter Lawrence, like they got guys in the secondary. So Saquon Barkley, like they are not a talent deprived roster like maybe I was saying they were earlier in the year. This is a legitimate playoff team at this point with New York, but the Eagles roster is entirely complete. We've seen their adaptability throughout the season. They are just going to make you wrong, especially with that offense. If you want to defend the run, they can throw it deep with these receivers. If you want to defend Jalen Hurts and the passing game, they'll run on you. They can beat you in any different way. Their defense is incredibly deep. I just think it's going to be too much for the New York Giants, and I don't think that's really a hot take at this point. I do think they're competitive. The Giants are going to bring it, right? They're going to have a good game plan. They're going to play their asses off physically, but I do think it's just going to be too much, and Jalen Hurts is going to get his first career playoff win here, 28-20. Okay, then the other NFC game is the Bucs visiting the San Francisco 49ers. And wow, this is going to be a really tough matchup, honestly. You know, the Niners, I think if they are looking at the NFC, which defense is going to do the best job to neutralize what they do, I think it is probably the Bucs, because the Bucs defense is just historically great against the run. And they've got Vita Vea back into the lineup here. These linebackers have speed and an ability to contain all of the rack stuff. So if you're looking for a matchup that maybe they can get some pressure on Brock Purdy, throw some blitzes on third down and throw him off as the 7th round rookie, I think it is that Bucs defense. And likewise, like Tampa having to go against Dallas in the first round, Brady's going to get the ball out. They're going to try and attack the middle of the field of this defense in the run game. and try and avoid mistakes so that defense can keep them around and hopefully, hit some shots to Mike Evans, which they've kind of found a decent enough game plan offensively. I do like this matchup for the Bucs, and I know the Niners are rolling right now, but Brady's not going to see a defense that is going to confuse him or scare him. Like these wide 9 rushes, he's just going to calmly step up. He'll get the ball out, and you're not going to feel that dominant Nick Bosa and Armstead type of game usually against Brady, who's just getting the ball out, like I said. So I do like this matchup for the Bucs, and I'm going to pick them to win this game. I think it's going to be incredibly tight, and if Brock Purdy can avoid mistakes in this game, you would think the Niners will win, but that's where I think the difference is going to be. I think Brady does a better job taking care of the football, and I think we see some Brock Purdy mistakes in this game, maybe a fumble here, an interception there, because he has had those, right? When push comes to shove, look at that Seahawks game in those critical passing down situations. If you can get this team to 3rd and long, that's how you're going to beat them. And I think the Bucs can do that because of how good they are on early downs. They actually play base defense. They stop the run. They have speed to the sidelines. So we're going to go Bucs ever so slightly here, 20-17. And after a really disgusting season in Tampa Bay, they're going to find themselves in the NFC Championship stunningly. Then we go to the AFC. We have the Chiefs visiting the LA Chargers, another divisional rematch here. These games have been excellent between these two teams. I feel like we always seem to get the best of Justin Herbert in these matchups. I don't know if it's a scheme thing, a confidence thing, but that's something to look out for a Chiefs defense that has not been particularly impressive over the last several months. Now, they have playmakers. Chris Jones seems to make a clutch sack every week. They have guys in the secondary that can be opportunistic, but this should be a battle with a lot of points. And you're really just talking about, can Patrick Mahomes dominate or can Justin Herbert dominate? And I think the Mike Williams thing is certainly something to keep an eye on. If you had a healthy Mike Williams here, I think the Chargers could play spoiler here, but I'm just not going to pick that right here. That seems a little bit overly ambitious, but I do think this is going to be a battle. The third time meeting between these two teams, maybe an overtime game, but this is turning into a pretty classic rivalry here. We are going to take the Chiefs, though, that I think is just they're the better coached, more experienced, better football team. So 30-26, Kansas City advancing to the AFC Championship. Okay, then we have the Damar Hamlin Bowl, and I guess this isn't going to be played at a neutral site, which I think is just kind of silly. Maybe someone in the chat or in the comments can explain why they decided that this shouldn't be a neutral site game, because I'm pretty sure if the Bengals had won that game, they would be the 2 seed. So that seems like they're kind of doing the Bengals dirty there, especially given what we've seen that Bills home field look like, even before the Damar Hamlin rallying call. But now it's like, gosh, that going into that stadium feels like it's going to be a really tough venue to play in right now. So I don't know how I feel about that, but this is going to be a freaking amazing game, dude. This might be the best game of the playoffs, given the narrative and how things transpired last Monday night. But we did see the Bengals come out and play really hot out the gate against the Bills, and I do think there's something to be said about that Bengals group of receivers matching up quite well with a Bills secondary that is probably their weakness, right? Kyer Elam just hasn't fully worked out. You've got some other kind of iffy guys back there, and Tre'Davious White is obviously very good, but he's kind of getting back into the mix there. So you got Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, freaking Hayden Hurst has been making plays. You've got Joe Burrow playing incredible, Joe Mixon in the run game. Like, they are just loaded right now, and they come out with great game plans to attack you in so many different ways. I don't think it's going to be enough. I'm going to take the Bills to win this one. There is just, honestly, if it weren't for what I saw from this Bills team against the Patriots, I don't think I would have made this pick. I think I would have gone with the Bengals. But there is an infectious energy about this team right now, and I can't get the playoff Josh Allen out of my mind right now, because I've been on this channel and said, like, Josh Allen's got to avoid these mistakes. When we get to the playoffs, he's got to play better football and all this stuff. I'm like, he can't throw 2 interceptions a game. Like, yeah, you can criticize him for that stuff, but I think he's going to clean it up. And I think he's going to go back to being that incredible playoff Josh Allen. Like the throw he made to Stephon Diggs against the Patriots, like how the hell do you defend that? You just can't. So I'm just picturing a battle between these games. Maybe Josh Allen gets the ball last. Maybe it goes to overtime. I don't know. But I just cannot quite pick the Bengals, who I love, to go into Buffalo and get this win. But this should be an absolute battle, and I could see either team getting this thing done. And if it wasn't in Buffalo, maybe things would be different. Again, I don't know how I feel about this not being in a neutral site, but we're going to go Bills 30-23. So we've got our AFC Championship. It's going to be the Tampa Bay Bucks visiting the Philadelphia Eagles, a rematch of last year's playoff battle. And the AFC Championship that I think we all would have predicted coming into the year. Bills versus Chiefs, whether it was in Arrowhead or in Buffalo, or in this case, a neutral site AFC Championship game. Wow. Look at that. That between these two games, a neutral site. Let's do that game first. There's really not a whole lot of analysis to be had on this game, to be completely honest. We know what this is going to look like. It's every time these guys meet, these are the two, best quarterbacks in the NFL is what it feels like when they play. They're demigods. They're trading blows. It's like, who has the ball last? Are there 13 seconds left on the clock? It doesn't matter. They're going to find a way to get in position. So, like I said, there's just not a whole lot to say about this game. Picking who's going to win this one feels like a flip of the coin, honestly. Who has the ball last? Who wins the coin toss in overtime? I'm actually going to predict that this goes to overtime. That it is, let's see, how would the math even add up here? I guess 25-25 for some reason. Goes to overtime. The Bills score. The Chiefs score. And then the Bills get the ball back and win on a game-winning field goal, getting kind of revenge for what happened last year, where they did lose the coin toss and then they changed the overtime rules. I still don't like the new rules, by the way, for this exact scenario. Like, why do the Bills then only need a field goal? Shouldn't it just go until, one team actually gets a full stop? I don't know. I don't have a perfectly good reason for this, other than I've got a really good feeling about the Bills right now. So we're going to go 35-32 in a game that really could go either way between these two teams. And then we have the NFC Championship, which is a much different matchup here, right? You have the old fading Bucks that kind of backdoor their way into this with some upsets, kind of heating up and looking more and more like their old self that myself and many expected them to be coming into the year. And then you have the Eagles, whose kind of just regular season success got them here. They get the first round bye. They run into a Giants team that maybe just isn't quite on their level. So you have Jalen Hurts really with a lot on his plate in this game, going against a really experienced defense. And can he execute? Can he avoid the mistakes and just kind of steer the ship into the Super Bowl? Because the Eagles roster is remarkable. And like I said, they have a lot of different ways to beat teams. And in this matchup in the playoffs last year, the Bucks blitzed. They got in these receivers' face, and that was without A.J. Brown. And they said, can Jalen Hurts beat us with his arm? And that performance was really ugly from Jalen Hurts last year. They put together a really good game plan, and I think there will be some of that, but Hurts is just such a better player. He plays in time. He avoids mistakes. He trusts these receivers. And the Bucks, for what it's worth, will show their cards. They're going to blitz and give Hurts opportunities to get A.J. Brown one-on-one. And I just think they're going to have enough answers in this one. And they even can run the ball against the Bucks, who typically kind of just can count on shutting down the run. Like, Eagles are they can run on anybody because they're that good up front. So I do think this is a lower scoring game, a physical game. And it's just going to come down to which quarterbacks can avoid mistake and which coordinators can drop some big creative stuff as the game goes on. And I just can't really pick against the Eagles at this point in time. with all of the different answers that they have against a Bucs team that I think is a little bit more one-dimensional than an Eagles team. So 21-17 in what would be a pretty good game here. But Eagles going to the Super Bowl as the 1 seed. So that takes us to Eagles at Bills for our Super Bowl. A phenomenal matchup. 2 loaded rosters with super dynamic and entertaining quarterbacks, right? Huge game for both these guys. Chance for either of these guys to get a Super Bowl. And, just from a legacy perspective, this would be a ton of fun. And honestly, 2 offenses that have a lot of parallels right now because of how they lean into their quarterbacks in that run game. And they allow that to be an answer to pretty much anything, not just improving their own run game, but when the pass game doesn't work, both these teams can go to QB power, QB draw, QB read option, you name it. And it's just really hard to stop. So I could see this being a little bit reminiscent of, in a different style, but that Eagles-Patriots Super Bowl that was like 44-40, just fireworks and a lot of offense. But both these defenses have a lot of talent as well. And both are, I think, especially in the Bills' case, very well coached. So I do think you get some stops in there. You get some big sacks and potential interceptions. But this would just be a hell of a game. Another one where it's like, who do you really side with here? I think I'm just going to let it roll with the Buffalo Bills, doing it for Damar Hamlin. And I know that's probably cliche and maybe a little bit of recency bias, but really just absorbing that game against the Patriots. I have a really good feeling that this is the Bills' year, and it was supposed to be their year. I think they've overcome adversity. I think the best teams, any Super Bowl team typically has to go through some adversity, and they've handled a lot of it this year, not just with Damar Hamlin, but injuries, right? They've lost star players defensively, and they've still managed to have a really good-looking defense. So I'm going to lean with the Bills here. The Eagles fall just short, which is fine. Eagles fans, you got tons of cap space, a young quarterback, the best GM in the league. I think you can get back here. But the Bills, who I'm not going to say they went all in for this year, but certainly was a Super Bowl or bust season for them. I'm going to pick them to get it done. And congrats, Bills fans. You are the TFG Super Bowl champion, which means I'm sorry, you're not going to win. But I hope you guys enjoyed. Again, please do hit that like button. It really helps me out more than you even know. It takes just a second. Scroll down there, find that thumbs up. Even if I didn't pick your team to win, it's nothing personal. I like all these teams, to be honest. I'd enjoy watching any of these teams go on a run. There you have it. Let me know in the comments down below who your picks are, where you agree, where you disagree. Make sure you're subscribed. We got draft content just around the corner. Really looking forward to that. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.